greetings, greetings, greetings. It is I again, your king, Clifford Jefferson, descendant of Godfrey, the fifth kind of band Jew, reincarnation of King Edward the Peaceful, as you know, is Jesus Christ. We're here again with another marvelous lesson, part 3, in regards to understanding what took place during the time of slavery on the Atlantic coast. As we already have implemented and showed without a shadow of doubt that the monarchs that descended down during the time of the War of the Roses were all slaveholders. Starting from those who descended from John Gaunt all the way up to the House of Tudors, the House of Stewart, to the House of Windsor, to the House of Handover, to the House of Saxon-Coburg, all the way up to the ruling monarch to this day. As you can see in the picture, you see a picture of a Portuguese ruler with a servant or a slave identified as a Moor. And this all took place through what we call the Iberian Union, which took place on the Iberian Peninsula. We showed you the Kingdom of Iberia all took place by way of a Roman invasion that took place in what we call, or what assumed to be 117 AD, but we know that was not the real time. The time was actually 1067, which was the time William the Conqueror invaded England, because England was not just an empire. Was not just a kingdom, it was an empire. It encompassed the whole world, as you can see in the Kingdom of Iberia. This is a vast territory with this flag flying, going back to 3000 BC, 302 BC. 302 BC is actually 649. I'm just going to pull it up for those who don't want to believe me, so that for the sake of confusion. 302. Okay. 302 BC. If you look at the calendar, there is no Gregorian calendar because it wasn't created until 1582. So the only year it could possibly be is the Berber calendar, which is the year 649, as I stated. So it's not 302 BC. It's 649 BC. And as you can see, every nation has a calendar. Your calendar means record. So if you claim to descend from a nation, you better find your date and time here, or your record right here on this calendar. And everybody's time is not the same. So for us, it's a day. To somebody else, it's something different. But look, Islamic calendar is 951, whatever the BA stands for. There's not even a Julian calendar yet. So how could there be a Rome and there's not a Julian calendar on display? That don't make no sense. All right. So if it's 302 in the Kingdom of Iberia, as displayed on the map, it's actually 649. And then 649, as it said, who is the pharaoh ruling? Under the Gregorian year, it's this guy. This is what the records they tell existed in 302 BC. But in our year, this is the guy who ruled. You see that? Ptolemy. I mean, not Ptolemy, let's see, 26 dynasty, let's go ahead. Somerset. Let me just find out. Give me 1 second. Let me just go back here. 33rd dynasty. All right, Potomac dynasty. Let's see. Potomac was one of 17 generals and possibly the half-brother of Alexander the Great. Blah, 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 blah. Just go down. Okay, 1 second. That's not what I'm looking for. 302 BC. So if that's what I meant to go. 649. Not that. 649 BC. So if it's 302 BC, then the Berber should be 649. 649. Enter. Come on now. Y'all gotta forgive me, I'm computer illiterate. Enter. They don't want to give me it.
It's not sure what you mean by BC.
302.
Calendar.
Let's see. Let's see if this will do it. Nope, it won't do it. Let's try year. 649 year. It should work. There we go.
649, 302 perfect calendar.
All right, 649. So in 649 BC, the Berbic is 15. Oh, is my computer? Y'all bear with me. My screen just went blank.
It's coming up.
Sorry about that. Okay, 649. So in 649 BC, now they don't want to tell you what, see now before they used to show you what's ruling in 649 BC. Let's see if they got it here. Oh, they're not showing you. So they're getting smart now. See, I didn't put all the information out before. Let's see who is the Egyptian pharaoh in 649 BC. It's Samson III.
Samson, it's showing Samson first, 649 BC, Samson the first, and it's also the Berber calendar year 302.
Uh-huh.
Is that what you're trying to bring up?
And the 302 is actually the year for Ptolemy Soter for the Roman calendar, but for us it's not. It's actually 649, and as you said, the pharaoh is Samson the first. How you spell that, Sam?
PSMTIK, I think.
Okay, here we go.
PSAMTIK. So that's the
last one. Samson the third is the last one.
Samson the third. We need Samson the first.
Right. The 26th dynasty. All right, composed of Samson the first, Samson the second, and Samson the third. So when you're going back to these dynasties here, Kingdom of Iberia, these are the pharaohs who rule it. When this flag is flying.
Wow.
When this flag is flying, the pharaohs in that particular area are Berbers. And they were invaded in 1067, which they want to say is the year 117, by William the Conqueror. And this is all the vast territory. Remember, this is Kushite territory. All this Tangier, 1063 BC. Let's go back to Tangier.
Oh, wow, I finally put it together.
Tangier. Let's go back to history. Many civilizations and cultures have influenced the history of Tangier, starting from before the 10th century BC. Did y'all see that? It's right there. So if you go 1050, that's going right back to first Samson the first, second, and third. These were all Berbers. And the flag that was flying in the time of these Berbers was an English storm flag. Where we at? Let me go back there. All these are Berbers. And in 1067, it ain't no 117 AD, because there was no calendar then. The only calendar is the Berber calendar, and that year was 1067, when William the Conqueror invaded our territory, which was Anglo-Saxon territory. How I know? I'm about to prove it. Because we went from 10,000 BC when we just said that they were Berbers, because you see the English flag under King Iberia, and you see the territory of that flag, which was vast. It wasn't just over here. Why is the England flag over here and all this territory is covered up? Green. Does that make sense to y'all?
Not at all.
Mm-hmm.
It should just be this area right here. If William the Conqueror invaded England. William the Conqueror took all this.
Wow.
All this.
And another way to say Rome, because that's who William the Conqueror was. He was Rome. So
He was a Rome.
this is when feudal tenure, like King said, when we're all living in peaceful, but this is when feudal tenure start coming in, this foreign occupation.
Mm-hmm. And then that brings us up to, once again, Somerset. Now, who was this guy, Somerset? King's Bench ruled in regards to there was no slavery in England. Excuse me. There was no slavery in England. Only time slavery was England when it was under the British monarchs. So how is this the case? Let's go here. First, let's look at the surname of Somerset. Do y'all see that?
Well, no.
Somerset history, family crest, coat of arms, England and Ireland. Now, how did King Charles Stewart, whose last name is a Scottish name, who descended down from these monarchs, who were de facto sitting on the throne of England, enslaving the so-called African, with a last name called Somerset?
Point of interest. Point of interest.
And not only that, it's got our family crest there. Look back at the King's Bench.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Let's go back to the King's Bench.
I'm kidding.
The theft of your estate and your birthright.
Look at that flag.
And
Same thing.
The point of interest, what we're showing you, like, it's people who look like us who did this. This was not done by so-called, the recessive or the white man. This was done by your own brothers and sisters who look just like you because they was jealous of your nobility.
Right there, y'all. Y'all see it for yourself. That Somerset name come from here.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way you're going to get in and that drawbridge raised up if you know this information. All right, what it says. Somerset is one of the many names that the Normans brought with them when they conquered England in 1066. Didn't I just say that?
Yeah.
I just said it. The Normans invaded England in 1066, through which my wife, my queen, gets her name from, Godwinson, through the Battle of Hastings. They invaded. Somerset goes back to the Cheddar Man, which is the oldest skeleton found in England of Nubians. The oldest skeleton, look it up, the Cheddar Man. Okay, now why is this important? We've seen that the Somerset, who was part of what we call the sea bubble or act in lieu of Escitio Negroes, who were subject to the slavery that was compelled by those monarchs, going all the way back to the House of Tudors. Because it said that it was ruled by the King's Bench. Now the King's Bench goes back to this crest right here. So how could the king, and the King's Bench knew it too, because they said that no slave would be, no one would be enslaved in England. And they was talking about this guy, Somerset, James Somerset, because the origin of his name goes back to the King's Bench. Now, why is this important? They said that this guy, James Somerset, came from Africa. All right, let's check this out. Henry planted in Somerset. Do y'all see that?
Yes.
Now, he don't look like no ruling class to me. Look at his name, Henry planted in Somerset.
Gotta be kidding me.
I'm not kidding you.
Wow.
Read what it says. Very light.
Says H.P. Somerset's family claimed descent from John. Hold on. H.P. Somerset's family claimed descent from John of Gaunt, and Catherine Swinford do the Beaufort line.
There you go. How we know that? Now look where this guy was born at.
Now, let me go explain that. Catherine
Before you do, he was a British. And he was born in where? Cape Town, North Africa.
Oh, wow.
Y'all see it.
Wow. South Africa. Wow. I didn't even.
How could this man have a Plantation crown being in South Africa? That's my family crest. This is where this goes back to. But how is this man
That's
living
crazy.
on our state? It's impossible. Go ahead, Archbishop. Break it down.
So point of interest, if I'm not mistaken, if the so-called white slavery that took place, where were they coming from? Because if the term Africa means cave dwellers, and they said that they came from so-called Africa, and now we're finding out the so-called that the English, us, the Anglo-Saxon Berbers, we're now been enslaved and now in a new so-called territory called Africa, which now I'm starting to see seems like that those people who they was actually enslaving, who was recessive, was now learning the ways of the English and now getting the inheritance. And the next thing you know, because remember, from I was told they never knew about these locations. All this stuff is new to them.
That's why they call it the New World. The New World ain't new to us. It's the old world for us.
Old world to
Just
us.
like the old world was old to us as well. So this ain't new to us. It's new to them because the origin of the new Africa comes from this history, as I just proven. We were all English heirs and successors. How we know? Because we go right here. It said on the Acento de Negro that the first holders of it were what? The Portuguese.
Portuguese.
That brings you here. Portuguese and Tangier War.
Which is, this is the war of the Roman Catholic Church fighting amongst those who they were trying to have pledged their allegiance, or those who had did pledge their allegiance who no longer want to have their allegiance with the Roman Catholic Church.
Mm-hmm. Now, as you can see, Portugal. Before it was Portugal, it was succeeded by the English Tangier. Prior to that, it was called Portugal Tangier. Prior to that, it was called Anglo, because Anglos made a treaty with the Portugal in 1373. So anybody who's came to descend down from these tribes of Tangier, should go right here, are not the true descendants of Tangier. Because we know that they only go back to 1073. And 1073 is the time when Roman invaded England. Roman invaded England. England existed way before this. England goes back to time immemorial. There is no time immemorial because you got a start date here. If you go back to the Kingdom of Iberia, 117 predates all the stuff you just read dealing with the Tangier. This is 117 AD, assuming it'll be real, but it's not because there is no date. So all this stuff was backdated and presented as if it actually existed, all while the original people of these territories were being part of the so-called slave trade. And the only way they could be protected is going back to the origin of where their rights came from, was the Anglo origin. And how we know that? King's Bench. Go back to the King's Bench.
Mm-hmm.
Court of the King's Bench. The Court of Kingdom was a court of common law and English legal system created in the late 12th, 13th century. Let's look what this Carré Regis is. Carré Regis was founded in what year? 1066 by William the Conqueror.
Mm-hmm.
And that means the Roman Carré. Prior to that, it was called Wittenmont. That's this right here.
Now, where was that area located?
Right here.
Curie Regis?
Correct Regis was all over it. Correct Regis means the legal system that was put in place
Okay,
at that time.
Remember, that's bringing in the feudal system.
Yeah,
okay,
that's the feudal system. In Latin, the term meaning royal council or king's court. It was named given to council or advisors in administration and medieval Europe who served the king, including kings of France, Norman kings, England kings, Sicily kings, Poland kings, and queens of Scotland. Now, Edward I was considered to be the first king of England, Ireland, and Scotland. How we know that? Let's look at it. Edward I, also from the Plantagenet crown. Edward I was king of England before he ascended to the throne, commonly referred to as Lord Edward. The first son of Henry III, Edward was involved from an early age in the political intrigue of his father's reign, which included an outright rebellion by English barons. In 1259, he briefly sided with the baronial reform movement supporting the provisions of Oxford. Let's go a little further down. Edward spent much of his reign reforming royal administrations in the common law. Through the extensive legal inquiry, he investigated the tenures of various feudal liberties. While the laws were reformed through a series of statutes regulating criminal and property law, increasingly, however, Edward's attention was drawn towards military affairs after suppression of the minor rebellions in Wales in 1276 to 1777. Let's go a little further. All right, let's go here. Edward I was a tall man in his era, about 6'2", that's the same height I am, about 188 meters. His nickname was Low Shank. He was temperamental, and this, along with his height, made him an intimidating man, and he often instilled fear in his contemporaries. Nevertheless, he held his respect of his subjects for the way he embodied the medieval idea of kingship. As a soldier, an administrator, and a man of faith, modern historians are divided in their assessment of Edward. While some have praised him for his contribution to the law and administration, others have criticized him for his uncompromising attitude toward his nobility. Currently, Edward I was credited with many accomplishments during his reign, including the restoration. Hold on 1 second, I apologize. Including, I'm sorry, I'm a bad. Where is that? Edward I would you say Archbishop?
It was including the restoring of the royal authority.
Okay, I think I got it now. Oh, let me go up. All right. While some have praised him for his contribution to the law and administration, others have criticized him for his uncompromising attitude toward his nobility. Currently, Edward I is credited with many accomplishments during his reign, including restoring royal authority after the reign of Henry III, establishing Parliament as a permanent institution and thereby also a functioning system for raising taxes and reforming the law through statutes. At the same time, he is also often criticized for issuing the Edict of Expulsion in 1290, by which the Jews were expelled from England. The edict remained in effect for the rest of the Middle Ages, and it was over 350 years until it was formally overturned by Oliver Cromwell. This is what we call the Commonwealth under one Parliament. The Commonwealth under one Parliament under Oliver Cromwell was a result of the taking over our estate, and this was done through those who invaded England, and this is why the Edict of Expulsion was issued by Edward I, so that the land would not be subjugated by foreigners. Edict of Expulsion. And this will be our closing. The Edict of Expulsion was a royal decree issued by King Edward I of England on 18th July 1290, expelling all Jews from the Kingdom of England. Edward advised the sheriff of all counties he wanted all Jews expelled by no later than All Saints' Day, November 1st that year. The exposed edict remained in force for the rest of the Middle Ages. The edict was not an isolated incident, but the culmination of over 20 years of increasing anti-Semitism in England. The edict was eventually overturned more than 250 years later during the Protectorate, when Oliver Cromwell permitted Jews return to England in 1657. All right. So all this has to do with us being taken out of our estate and those who are foreigners put in. All right. They took our place. These so-called Jews, because this gets in the history of what we call Jerusalem or in Israel, because we know that was if you look at the one of the skits that Archbishop put on our podcast of them reinventing the history of what we now call Egyptian by building those artifacts and putting them in place. Because why would King Edward the Peaceful, the son of Godfrey, so why would Godfrey the fifth Caliban Jew, the son of Folk, the ruler of Jerusalem, be over in Egypt? Because Jerusalem was supposed to be over in Egypt, but they got two Jerusalem. They got one during the Crusades and one through the time era dealing with what was it, BC time. So somebody got to be lying, because there was no BC. Because if that was the case, you would be still using our time chart, our calendar, because you don't have one. So all the stories that are being told are fabricated up until the 15th century. Why? Because they had to recreate the story and implement it and backdate it. And this is when you get the history of Elizabeth I and her astrologer, John Dee. There's a book, I forgot what it was called.
Empire of the Angels.
What's it called again?
Empire of the Angels.
Empire of the Angels. All those who have the capability, get that book. It also shows you that they were using our sciences against us to keep this away from us in regards to start what we call astronomy,
Astrology,
astrology, all that they used to control our concrete estate and make it abstract for us. And that has to stop now. So I have proved to you without a shadow of a doubt, going back to what we call the Anglo and Portuguese alliance 1373, showing you that when you get into Portugal and Spain, you're not just speaking over to the territory on what we call Europe. You also get in the history of North America before there was even the Great Britain here, because North America was inhabited by Spain, Portugal, and French during the 13th, 14th, and 15th century. So you gotta know that history, because it takes you right back here to the Pleasure Crown, right back here. So with that, I'm hoping it wasn't confusing for all those who are viewing, but the main purpose of that is to understand that you are still in and will remain in the Kingdom of England. How we know that? This is in closing. The concession agreement. And I know I have one more thing to show y'all.
And there's the book that Sister Allen is holding up.
1 second.
The Empire of the Angels.
Yeah, there you go. Empire of the Angels. Now look at this, viewers. Very important. This is 2019 New Jersey revised statute. Under property, estates tail abolished. Once again, 46:3-15. This is a modern day common law statute going back to Act of Parliament by Edward I. It said, whenever any conveyance, will, or instrument in writing shall have to hereafter be made, whereby any grantee, devisee, or person should become sieves in law or in equity of such estate and real estate, as under the statutes of 13th under Edward I, called the statute of entail, would have been held in the state in fee tail of any type of character, such conveyance, will, or instrument shall vest in the state in fee and simple, and such grantee, devisee, or other person. So what he's actually saying is that no one can hold a state in entail if it's not done according to the time immemorial, going back to Edward I. So the only estate you can hold that after that is fee and simple. But fee and simple was abolished. How we know that? Let's go back here. And this will be our closing. All right, so it just said all intel will be abolished and will be considered fee intel if it's not going back to the time of Edward the First. And Edward the First was ruling the time of the Plantation. And then we go here, Title 46. 46:3-2. Or 1, I mean. No, I'm sorry, 10. Fines and come recovery. From and after June 12, 1,795, no fines or common recovery that has been or should be entered, made or had or suffered in any court of record of this state shall operate or be construed to be a conveyance or assurance of any real estate, or any way bar and issue an intel, or the reversion or remanding of a lawful claim of entry and any usage of custom to the contrary is notwithstanding. So what they're telling you that if you don't have an estate that's intel going back to Edward the First, you got problems. Because all the states here that were held by everything after Edward the First were fee and simple. And that has been abolished. It just said it. Let's go ahead. Another statute. New Jersey Revised Statute 46:3-1, feudal tenure abolished. The feudal tenure estate and the instant thereof taken away, discharged, and abolished from and after March 12, 1,664. Y'all listen, viewers, 1,664. That's 1664. By Section 2 of an act entitled an Act Concerning Tenures, passed February 18th, 1795. This brings on the colonies now. When they broke away and became states, they declared their independence and now situated their government in what we call Washington, D.C. in 1790, called the Residency Act and the Funding Act. And it said that in 1795 shall so continue to be taken away, discharged, and abolished, and no such estate or incident thereof should at any time be created in a manner whatsoever. So what they're saying, that no fee and simple estate can exist here in North America because they've been abolished. Because when they created fee and simple estates, it was under what we call common recovery. And it just said, where is it at? Back to 10. Go back to 10, we just read it. Fines and recoveries are abolished. So if you don't hold a state intel, you got problems because the state intel belongs to the English heirs and successors. How do we know that? This is just a new modern day statute. Now let's look at a parliamentary act to support that. The same verbiage. Given by a monarch. Come on now. I'm sorry. I got to forgive me. I'm over here, got the jitters. Fines. And there we go. Now this is legislative, y'all. Legislation. Where did it go? Fines. My writing skills is up. Comment.
You tapped on images, that's why.
Oh, okay.
You gotta click on all.
It's still going back there.
Mhm.
Give me 1 second, y'all. Okay, here we go. Fines and Recovery Act. Let's go back to here. Oh, you just read it. 46.3-10, Fines and Recovery Act are abolished. Now here you have a legislative statute by William IV, a monarch of Great Britain, of the British Empire. Fines and Recovery Act 1833 was an act by Parliament of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland. It abolished the two species of property conveyance known as fines of land or final concourse and common recovery. What is common recovery? Common recovery was a legal proceeding in England that enabled lawyers to convert an entail estate or a form of land ownership, also called fee entail, into absolute fee and simple. So I just showed you that how they took it from you and how you're supposed to get it back. How you got it back is by the statute that just provided for you. Let me just go back there and I'm going to close.
In point of interest, brothers and sisters, hopefully at this point you have kind of realized that so-called United States is still keeping up to their original charter, the original contract. You just don't know it.
Right there. Fines and common recovery are abolished. So the 1833 Act is reiterating what this statute says in 2019 and 2022, that any person who claims to own property and you're not an heir, you have some serious problems, because once it's challenged, it's over.
Mm-hmm.
So we're letting you know that they are aware that we are who we say we are. Why? Because there are treaties with the English Tangier who were Berbers. Right here. You've always been Anglo-Saxon Berbers, going back to time immemorial through the Kingdom of Iberia, which is here.
Wow. And in point of interest, that's around the same time when they did the what is that contract? The Cestui Q Trust.
Mm-hmm. Yes, 1661.
Mm-hmm.
Now, check this out. We also said that the holders of the Apicento Negroes were the first holders were the Portuguese. Didn't they say that?
Yes.
And we know that the Portuguese treaty was, the Portuguese and Tangier War was succeeded or preceded by the Anglo and Portuguese Treaty of 1373. Let's go back there. Because it said that the Portuguese was the first holder of the Apicento Negroes through what they call Iberian Union. So it said the Anglo-Portuguese Treaty of 1373, blase. It says the treaty was temporarily void during the Iberian Union of 1580 and 1640. That goes back to the Portuguese. Iberian Union was a dynastic of the Kingdom of Castile Aragon and the Kingdom of Portugal under Castilian crown that existed between 1580 and 1640, and which brought an entire Iberian Peninsula as well as the Portuguese overseas possessions under the Spanish Habsburg King Philip II, Philip III, and Philip IV. There you have it. There you have it. Your whole history right before you. I'm showing you everything that has to do with any identity as Moors. It's fictitious because you are Anglo-Saxon Berbers. You have always been Anglo-Saxon Berbers, because I've shown you that the territory that were covered by Berbers had a flag going back to England through time immemorial, because you were Anglo-Saxon Berbers. So with that, I'm gonna say peace. I'm pretty sure if you review this lesson over and over, the clarity will come. But for those who don't, you will still remain confused. I give honor for those who are studious to the sound of my voice. And as always, I let everyone say a couple of words in regards to the regurgitate of the information that was proceeded thus forth out of my mouth. Archbishop, you can go first.
There you have it, brothers and sisters from the Kingdom of England, Empire of Albion. As you see that our English heirs, they're not just here in the so-called British American colonies. We have our English heirs are all over the world. And especially from this lesson, you see that they're in a so-called territory that they're calling Africa. This is big, because you see brothers and sisters from here who constantly keep saying they want to go to the motherland, But contrary to belief, the motherland is here. It is the motherland. And them over there are trying to get here, which now we see why many of our brothers and sisters from Africa come over here to so-called America. They know this truth. Don't think everybody don't know this information. We're just now coming up to the consciousness of it because this is the large part of the empire. That's where the majority of us are at. And the king has done diligently, has brought every last piece that we need to accept who we are. And it's going to be hard for many of you who want to come back home because underneath the Kingdom of England, it's the status of the father. And you must listen to the father, the head of the house, who's supposed to be actually instilling this information to the mothers, so the mothers can go ahead and instill it to the children. So as you see, you must come back and become the head of the house. Only folks who can actually do this is the English heirs, no one else. And no one's going to hold your hand for you to go and step back into the role that you're supposed to be doing. So with that being said, I leave the rest to the closing to C.A. Murphy, as well as to Sister Allen, as well as Sister Walker from their respective houses. And if the brother Milligan, as well as Brother Gray from their house, if they want to go ahead and give a closing remark, then they're capable of doing so. So I digress. And once again, brothers and sisters, please take this information seriously because the world is watching and everything is lining up for us to be able to inherit what was already ours from the beginning. Peace.
Well said, Archbishop. C.A.?
Peace and love, everyone. Once again, marvelous lesson going through the timeline, our inheritance, the usurpation of its law, its king bench, as well as your identity. In the time where you can self-identify, here's your timeline and path that you can follow in concrete. A lot of the abstract is meant to discourage you or dissuade you or put you on a path that does not lead to restoring or restoration of your birthright. So in all of your get over standing in the abstract, but in the concrete, relate that to your modern day laws and statutes which precede you, which is your English heritage and ethnicity, creed and culture. So it is a marvelous timeline that you can follow. I myself going to go back and watch this video all the way from the time of Egypt, better known as Tangier or Anglo Tangier. The people, water does not separate a people. So, you know, to connect yourself to not only the Iberian Peninsula or on over to what we know now as the Americas, your English heirship has been intact, and the trusts that were created were by royal charter in lieu of the corporate charters that are governing your estates as tenants in chief. So we urge you to restore your heritage and your birthright by first acknowledging your surname and your hereditatements as it relates to this truth. It's all applicable once you find yourself in the church. That is the circle, the community that practices and religiously studies this, which is your law that governs you. So I trust all of you at the sound of my voice will be studentful, and that you'll constantly reaffirm these lessons to impart and set your household in order. I yield the floor and I greet you as I met you with peace and love from the House of Murphy. Islam, shalom.
Well said. Well said. Once again, it's beautiful to hear our Archbishop of CA take their place amongst the affairs of man and assist the king with all his endeavors. But, you know, it would be none to veil if I didn't give honor to my queen. Sister Godwinson from the House of Godwin, and I'll let her say a couple of words in closing. Sister Godwinson.
Peace and love, everyone. This was another beautiful lesson. This is really an eye-opener. And for all those who are viewing and listening to this lesson, it just gives you information that you can obtain and travel with. And hopefully everybody take heed to the lesson and do your further research on your own. Like the king always say, he who writes your book, set your timeline. So it's just giving him honor for bringing truth to everyone in this kingdom here. And I just want to give honor to the king.
Well
Peace.
said, Queen. Like I said, I couldn't. She on me. You know, I had a headache before class start. She was in my alarm clock. Got to get up. I said, no, I got another 15 minutes. Archbishop said 12:30. Get up. I said, all right, I'm getting up. So it's just beautiful to have a companion to support you. And that's one thing we don't have at support, you know. So it's just beautiful as men to be planting the soil that the sisters are not growing, because we know that this information can break up household. So, and at one time it did, you know, but at the same time, it gave us time to grow into a better household, because when you clean the house, you got to throw away everything you did to put new stuff in. And that's one thing my wife likes. She likes shopping. And I'm like, you know, she likes shopping, spending money. But that's a whole nother lesson we're gonna have to get into. But I love her dearly, and I thank her for being with me and supporting me as my queen, as well as my concubine. Kind words, as she has said, and I'm pretty sure the same will be done with Sister Erica and Sister Allen. And I let Sister Allen take the podium. Go ahead, sister.
Thank you, King. Yes, this is a very powerful lesson that has been taught to us today. A lot of confusion was created. The usurpers have been very skilled at confusing your timeline and your historical content, and which has further divided the Anglo-Saxon family and took you everywhere from truth to accept. I'm sorry. It has confused your Anglo-Saxon family and has confused you into looking everywhere for your history and your allegiance all over the world, except for right here where you are today. A lot of information has been shown to us today, and all I ask is that you go back and review the lesson that has been taught and break down all of these dates and just carefully kind of piece it together until you arrive to some sort of sensibility and understand what is actually has been taken from us so that we can restore our nation. Thank you.
Well said, Sister Walker, from Sister out in the house to Allen.
Yes.
And as he said, you know, the gifts of understanding are the treasure of the Creator, and he reports to everyone what's good to himself. And as he said, you know, the good knowledge and the possession of a thing that it may be good for others. And how could you give to others if you don't understand it yourself? So with the information that I presented and the way I deliver it, many people can't do that because the information has been here and nobody has been able to do it thus far. So it takes a wizard to be able to sift through the mess and be able to fix it like it's supposed to be. And the ones who's supposed to be fixing it are not fixing it. And that's the problem. So with great power comes great responsibility, but the people who have the power are not living up to the responsibility. Therefore, we must go back to the source, because that's where the responsibility started. And with that, I'll let Sister Walker from the House of Walker say a couple of words. Greetings, sister.
Greetings. I am honored to be here today to witness and be part of this lesson. And I actually can't wait to share this with my family and friends. I was talking to a friend recently about us being Anglo-Saxon Berbers. And he said, well, where do you get this information from? Why would you say, you know, is it in the congressional records? And I can't wait to send him the. But more importantly, you know, we have so many references, acts, you know, the Black Act of 1723, the Bubble Act of 1720, the Queen's Anne's Treaty from 1713. And we could just go to so many references. And in fact, I would urge people also to have their Black's Law Dictionary right there with them so they can look up entail, fee simple, and understand what they're reading so they can decipher this, because you're not going to get the real picture just watching the video. You're going to have to sit down. You're going to have to print out all these acts and use them as references and highlight. And so you can understand this information so you can pass it down to your children. I can't wait to pass this information down to my husband and all my children and my brothers and sisters and even my mother. So, you know, so they can see this isn't fictitious. This is, you know, they can, you know, not just go to the congressional records for their information like a lot of people who think we're indigenous to America. No, we're Anglo-Saxon Berbers. We have a nationality. We have a language. We're not just.
Can I input, Sister Venus?
Mm-hmm.
You made a good point. A lot of people say, well, where's the congressional record? Why would you want to go for records in Congress when that Congress was not lawfully established?
Right.
That don't make no sense. You know what I'm saying? Before that Congress was here, there was Parliament Congress. You can't refer to your rights being protected by Congress. Why? Because that Congress is de facto.
Mm-hmm.
Good. Well said, Sister Alan. Well said.
Walker.
Sister Walker. I'm sorry about that, Sister Walker. I'm bad with names, so forgive me.
Yeah,
But continue on. Continue on.
So that's the point that I'm making. They think that's the authority when we have records that go back to time immemorial. You know, we have records of our families here, our last names, our coat of arms, our crest. So those are the things we need to embrace. And so I can't wait till this video airs so I could pick it apart and share it with my family and friends.
Yeah, because I know, as you said, Archbishop, I got you. When they see that, what's that guy's name? What's his name? Henry.
Yes.
Somerset.
Yeah, Henry Plantation in Somerset. When they see that and realize that the one who was enslaved, the origin of the name go back to the Plantagen, but yeah, he's trying to live off that virtue, and he's not a Plantagen seed because all those nobles were Asiatic, for lack of a better term, black. But we know that black is not an identity. So therefore, those who are subject to the condition as James Somerset was, you better do your research, because even the King's Bench said this man was no slave. They said he was not a slave. This in 1772. And we're showing you that what the Pennsylvania Supreme Court did in 1723 in lieu of the Black Act of 1722, in lieu of the Black Act of 1723, that they knew their intentions were bad from the jump.
Exactly.
So it's our obligation to fix what King George III, King George II, King George I, Queen Anne, King James, King Charles II, King George I, James II, Elizabeth I, Henry VIII, Henry VII, Henry VI, the 5th, the 4th, on down to John Gaunt are illegitimate descendants. Why? Because we know that the only legitimate heirs were those who existed from Edward I. And with that, the King's Bench, as well as all the heirs and successors, say peace and love to y'all. Peace.
Peace.
And
Archbishop.
Go.
Sorry, Archbishop.
That's okay.
Brother Greg.
Off of what Sister Walker has said, for the brothers and sisters who want to see something in legislation and to cooperate from the 1723 Black Act, let's go ahead and go to the South Carolina Negro Act of 1740.
Oh yeah, there you go. There you go.
Now remember, any act that was passed in one province was passed throughout the colonies, period. All right, so the Negro Law of South Carolina, we're just gonna go straight to the nitty-gritty. The excerpt, the following is an excerpt from the first page of the first chapter on the status of the Negro, his rights and the disabilities in the Negro Law of South Carolina. Section 1, the Act of 1740. So it's showing you what year. So just not too far off from when the 1723 Black Act.
Yeah.
We're going
20 years.
Section 4, the term Negro. Now we just told you we're the Berbers and who we were. It says the term Negro is confined to slave Africans, the ancient Berbers and their descendants. So once again, if you have been known as a Negro, African or African American, you're an ancient Berber.
Not embraced.
And you're a descendant of those.
Okay.
It
Yeah,
does
he
not
is. Yeah.
embrace.
Yeah. She's my wife. Queen said, read the next part.
It does not embrace the free inhabitants of Africa. So they're letting you know they're not talking about the folks in so-called the continent of Africa. They're talking about the so-called Berbers on the continent of what you call America. or such as the Egyptians, Moors, we know Moors are Berbers, but all Berbers aren't Moors, or the Negro Asiatics, such as the Lascars. And these will be the ones, the people located in the location, which we'll say is ancient southeast Asia, which is like India territory.
Because as I said, it does not embrace the free inhabitants of Africa, because you were given the rights by the foreigner who allowed you to have the so-called, what they call status, political status that they gave to you. So you're not free, even though you're claiming to be free, you're still not free because you're still subject to the allegiance of that which gave you your freedom.
It's a denizen.
A denizen, said it right. Look, pull that up, Archbishop, before we close out. Denizen.
All right. Just put that up through here.
Remember, when you read these constitutions from these foreigners, it's a letter pack.
Mm-hmm.
It's only a letter pack.
Pull up right now. And also too, let's see, pull up at the point. Here we go. Denization. Denization is an obsolete or defunct process in England and Ireland, the later Kingdom of Great Britain, the United Kingdom, and the British Empire dating back to the 13th century, by which an alien, which is a foreigner, through letters patent became a denizen, thereby obtaining certain rights otherwise normally enjoyed only by the king's or queen's subjects, including the right to hold land.
Read that again. Read that again.
Denization is an obsolete or defunct process in England and Ireland, and later the Kingdom of Great Britain, the United Kingdom, and the British Empire, dating back to the 13th century, by which an alien who was a foreigner through letters patent became a denizen, thereby obtaining certain rights otherwise normally enjoyed only by the king's or queen's subjects, including the right to hold land.
Now unfreeze your screen. Now watch this, y'all. Was it 46? Here we go. Please don't give me no problems.
Statue.
Okay. Title 46.
Okay.
Now, Archbishop said they were aliens. Now look at what this says.
And also too, point of interest, denizens, they couldn't hold or they couldn't be members of parliament or hold any civil or military office of trust.
Yes.
So they had limited political rights.
Yes, sir. All right, here we go. Well, that's 18.
And now it kind of makes sense. No taxation without representation, because that was the denizens. They had no representations because they had no members of parliament. They couldn't be members of parliament.
They couldn't be members of parliament, exactly.
So all Americans are denizens.
All Americans.
All
I'm about to
Americans
show you.
Yeah, all Americans.
I'm about to show you that all Americans are citizens.
You call yourself an American Indian, only thing you're doing is calling yourself a debtor or a native debtor.
Anything with American on it is tax. Anything with American on it is a taxpayer debtor.
Yeah.
All right. Read that for Archbishop.
Oh yeah. New Jersey Revised Statute 40, Section 46:3-18. Aliens. Alien friend defined. Right to acquire, hold, and transfer real estate. It says, alien friends shall have the same rights, powers, and privileges, and be subject to the same burdens, duties, and liabilities and restrictions, and in respect of real estate situate in this state as native-born citizens.
Read that again.
Alien friends shall have the same rights, powers, and privileges, and be subject to the same burdens, duties, liabilities, and restrictions, in respect of real estate situate in this state as native-born citizens.
Now remember, you got two types of statuses, just soil and just sanguineous. Just soil means born on the soil. Just sanguineous means of blood. Just because you're born somewhere don't make you a citizen, unless you're born of the blood. So it just said right here, they ain't even talking about aliens. They talking about alien friends. A friend of an alien, right? They ain't talking about aliens. It said alien friend in quotations. And it said that this, in regards to real estate. Now, Archbishop just said that a citizen is a foreigner who don't have the right to own property nor hold office of any estate. Now we're reading the definition of a parliamentary common law legislative act that's now became statutory by way of the revised statute of New Jersey that said that alien friends shall have the same rights, powers, and privileges, but be subject to the same burdens and duties. Those are called encumbrances, liabilities, and restrictions in respect to real estate situated in the state as a native-born citizen. So hell, if an alien friend got the same rights as a native-born citizen, that means that that native-born citizen must be an alien too.
Absolutely.
And
that's what they're saying, Archbishop.
Point of interest, you're claiming you as real estate, which is
real estate,
chattel property. So whenever you hear folks call themselves realtors, I sell real estate, they also talk about they're selling human property, chattel slavery.
Human property.
Point of interest.
Go ahead, CA.
Anything with the verbiage state or estate is a corporate construct in verbiage with in lieu of entail inheritance.
So there you have it, y'all. It shows you that if you're a native-born citizen without your birthright, you're an alien because you don't have a birthright. The only rights you got is that which they allow you by way of denization, which is called naturalized citizen. And we know that as a naturalized citizen, you do not have the same rights as a national. Because a national is by birthright, by blood. You're originally part of the original nation. And the original nation here in what we now call North America was England. Why? Because you're reading statutes. A native-born citizen, as it said here, is an alien. You're no different than the alien if you were born here and not a national of the original language, because going back to 46-2, and we'll close on that. 1 second, let me go back.
So point of interest, so those who are claiming themselves to be Native Americans, or Native Indians or American Indians, you better be questioning those legal fictions you're claiming to be. The reason why they have so-called Native Americans on reservations.
There we go, 46-3-2. Free and common soakage. The tenures of honors, manors, lands, tenements, or hereditaments, or of an estate of inheritance at the common law. There's only one common law, and that's the common law of England. Every state constitution honors the common law. So one state statute should be good in any state if it's based off the common law. If they don't honor a state statute from another state, then that state is not following the common law, because there's only one common law, and that's the common law of England. So it's just said here, the tenures of honors and manors, lands and tenements. That means if you're talking about an apartment building, you're talking about a room, you're talking about 2 rooms, you're talking about a condo, I don't care what it is. It's based off hereditaments, which is part of the inheritance based off common law, because all inheritance of intel estates operate by way of operation of law. It's automatically transferred. So it says held either by the King of England. Well, since that we know they took over, ain't no King of England. So it said, or any person, or body politics, or corporate. So that means that in order for you, that takes you back to crown. I don't believe I'm going back into this. Snuck me up into this lesson. We can go on for days there.
Look, we this say it's good to go over it once or twice or 3 times or 4 or 5, huh?
Mhm. Look at this, y'all. The state even tell you. Torrance land law. Because if you ain't got no, you don't have the right to be on the soil, you ain't got no birthright. You can't have a just soil without just sanguineous. But people are trying to have the two without it being uniform. And that's a problem. That's what we call part 2 sequitur via trim. Torrance law. Torrance law is a land registration and land transfer system in which a state creates. It didn't say the grantor, i.e. the king. It said the state created and maintained the register of land holdings, which served as a conclusive evidence of a title of the person recorded on the register of the proprietor owner and of all interests and records of the register. Okay, let's go here. Deeds. In common law, a deed is a legal instrument in writing which passes the firm to confirm an interest, right, or property, and that is signed, attested, delivered, in some jurisdictions sealed. The deed is it is commonly associated with the transfer or conveyance of title or property. The deed has a greater presumption of validity and a less rebuttal than the instrument signed by the party of the deed. Now let's go back to title under Torrance law. You got a deed and you got a title. Title. In property law, title is an intangible construct representing a bundle of rights, a piece of property in which a party may either have a legal interest or equitable interest. The right in the bundle may be separated and held by different parties and may also be referred to as a formal document, such as a deed that could serve as a evidence of ownership. Why is this important? Let's go back to Torrance law. So you see the difference between a deed and a title. Now this is going to show you the difference. Background of Torrance law, or the purpose why it was created. Common law. Everybody listening?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Under the common law, and which was Torrance law, which created in regards to land or property, it said at the common law, the vendor of a land needs to show his or her ownership of land by tracing the chain of ownership back to the earliest grant of land, back to the crown, to its first owner. You hear that? To the crown. The document related to the transaction with the land are collectively known as the title deed or chain of title. So you may have a deed, but it's not a clear chain of title because it has to go back to the crown. Why we know that? It just said it. And in order to show ownership, it had to go back to the earliest grant relating to the crown. What is the crown?
On the ventures, and that's why that Domesday book is so important, because it goes back all the way to the time when William the Conqueror started divvying out abstract estates.
And the crown can do that. It says the crown is an estate in its all. Aspects within the jurisprudence of the Commonwealth rim and their subdivisions, such as the crown dependencies, overseas territories, provinces, or states. So the crown encompasses crown dependencies, overseas territories, provinces, as well as the states. You know, the states were preceded by provinces. The provinces were preceded by overseas territories, which were actually crown dependencies, because they were under the authority or the jurisdiction of the crown. Legally ill-defined, the term is used to designate the monarch in either a personal capacity as head of the Commonwealth or as king or queen of their realm. It can also refer to the rule of law. However, in common parlances, the crown refers to a function of government and the civil service. A corporation soul is the crown is the legal embodiment of the executive, legislative, and judicial governance and the monarch of each Commonwealth member. Well, the corporation soul. A corporation soul is a legal entity consisting of a single soul incorporated office occupied by a single soul or natural person. This structure allows corporations, often religious corporations or Commonwealth government, to pass without interruptions from one office holder to the next, given a position of legal continuity with subsequent office holders having identical powers and possessions to their predecessors. Why do I say that? Brings me here. See, people think we just talking. We don't just talk. Title 16. Everything supported by common laws, legislative statute. 16. No. 1646, 43-89. 16:1:1-43.8. Parts of. Let me slow down. 16:1-43.8 of New Jersey revised statute. It says clearly, and I quote, vested rights and privileges of constituent corporations and continuation of corporation existence. Nothing herein contained shall impair or null or affect any vested right, charter right, privileges, exemptions, immunities, powers, prerogatives, franchise, or advantages hereto obtained and actually used or enjoyed by either constituent corporation under the authority of an act of the state. Neither constituent corporation shall be dissolved, nor shall its existence be terminated by reason of the consolidation, but it shall continue to exist in the consolidation corporation, which shall succeed to and continue to have the enjoyment unimpaired, the civil rights, charter rights, privileges, exemptions, immunities, powers, prerogative, franchise, and advantages of the constituent corporation consistently with the provision of this act of the consolidated agreement. And how we know that to be true? Because we go right here. Part 9 of the same act. The consolidated corporation shall have and may exercise all powers conferred by the respective certificate or incorporation charter. Did y'all hear that? Right here. The consolidated corporation shall have and may exercise all powers conferred by the respective certificate of incorporation or charter of constituent corporation. So a certificate of incorporation is a charter. It's not a government, it's just an instrument that transfers powers and rights. But the power and rights that's transmitted from us, i.e. our religious society, comes from this. And this is the last one. Section 16:1-28, saving the rights under the charge of Great Britain. Revised 1877, being section 12 of an act entitled An Act to Incorporate the Trustees of Religious Societies. So what did it say? An act to incorporate religious trustees of religious society. So when you become a member of the English Third Temple Church, this is what's happening. You're being incorporated as a member, trustee, officer of a religious society. Why? Because it was approved on April 9th, 1875. Saved from repeal. And this act vested property, i.e. Title 46, held under charters, Title 46, of incorporated, granted by Great Britain, and corporations created in place thereof. So do our certificate of incorporation, the charter rights going back to the rights set on the Charter of Great Britain, going back to the Magna Carta, were incorporated in our certificate of corporation, which is our charter rights, through the constituent corporate rights that were transferred by way of a constituent corporation. So that means that no one can dissolve that because it was transferred and preserved via the statute.
Absolutely.
Because it said it. The common law of England, let me just go to it, and we can close out. The original Constitution, July 2nd, second, 1776. My handwriting is terrible. 76 Constitution. There we go. Now, this is on the New Jersey website, y'all. This is what makes it so embarrassing. Y'all see this? Department of State. This is the State Department, and they got this 1776 Constitution right up there. Let's read what it says. This is called the escape clause, the nullification provision clause. It said it right here. Nullification provision certification clause. It says, '23, that every person we shall elect as a force to be members of the Legislative Council or House Assembly shall previous to his taking his seat, council or assembly, taking the following oath of affirmation. I, A, and B do solemnly declare that the member of the Legislative Council or Assembly, as the case may be, of the colony of New Jersey. Did it say state, y'all?
Absolutely not.
But you got this on the state website. But it didn't say nothing about the state. It says that the colony of New Jersey, I will not assent to any law, vote, or proceeding which shall appear to me injurious to the public welfare of the said colony. Did it say state or colony?
Your colony.
Colony.
Said colony. So by you being a colony, you violated everything you just said here, right? Nor that shall annul or repeal that part of the third section of the charter of this colony, which establishes the election of members of the Legislative Council and Assembly, shall be annulled, nor that part of the 22nd section and said part or part of the 18th or 19th section of the same. And any person or person who shall be elected as a aforesaid is hereby empowered to administer to the said members of the said oath of affirmation, provided always in its true intent and the meaning of this Congress, that if a reconciliation between Great Britain and these colonies should take place, and that the latter be again taken under the protection of the government of the Crown of Great Britain, this charter should be null and void, otherwise remain firm and inviolable. So that means that under 16.1-28, right, say the charter of Great Britain, say for repeal, there's a reconciliation between Great Britain.
Mm-hmm.
So they already know what's going on. We just don't.
You just don't. And it's been like that for a long time.
How I know that? Look what it said here. Section 22. On the New Jersey website, right on the governor website. That the common law of England, did it say Scotland? Did it say Ireland? No. Did it say Britain? No. Did it say Protestant? No. It said England. It said that the common law of England, as well as so much of the state statute, because remember, the common law is the statutory law, not stereotyping. That's case law for them. The common law for us is statute. The common law for them is case law.
Mm-hmm.
Said that the common law of England, as well as much of the statute law, as have been heretofore practiced in this colony. Did it say state, y'all?
No, it didn't.
Colony.
It said colony should remain in force until it should be altered by the future law of legislation. This is the future legislative law. You're reading it right now. But you're not reading it from because it's the legislative law. So when you go to legislative law, just sit right here. Right here in the charge of Great Britain, it just left out all the good stuff. They didn't tell you about the Kingdom of England, all the kings. Look at this one. Look at this. This is just crazy. Y'all got me going. And I see I'm not supposed to be going here. Just look at the everything you can accomplish from one statute. 16. Property. (3-1). Feudal tenure abolished. The feudal tenure estates, can everybody see that?
Yep.
The feudal tenure estates and the instance thereof taken away, discharged, and abolished from and after, meaning before and after March 12, 1664, by Section 12 of an act concerning tenures passed February 8th, 1795, should so continue to be taken away, discharged, and abolished. So that means that all the acts that were created in 1664. Let's go back to the concession agreement. So just from that one statute, the English bench can interpret that from that one statute, being that they mentioned the date 1664, it encompasses all of this. The concession agreement of lower properties of the province of New Syria or New Jersey to and with all every adventure in all such as shall settle or plant. So they know they ain't talking about you. They're talking about the colonists. In 1664, a document that provided religious freedom in the colony of New Jersey. But according to the statute we just read, it's dissolved. It's no more. So if anybody who claimed to settle in what we now call the United States of America, claim to have an actual interest in property, they better show them that they're English heir, because according to the statute, everything that was held by the proprietors who settled on this land now called New Jersey has been dissolved. Discharged. And now everything remains under free and common soccus now. Free and common soccus is the tax that the king put on those settlers who settled on this land. How we know that? Let's go back here. You know what? I'm not going to do that. I'm giving too much already.
Point of interest, King.
Go ahead.
That's the qualifying statement. This is why they keep you in the narrative of Negro, Black, and Colored, to keep you away from your English history. Because once you reattach your head to your body, that's your knowledge of your in-state inheritance entail, which proceeds back to the crown.
Yes,
So
it is.
once you get your head out of the ground and acknowledge your language you speak, your customs and your culture, which is, i.e., honoring your foremothers and forefather, you too shall inherit, which is abstract kingdom of heaven, or your birthright estate, or your birthright inheritance, and that encompasses property, real property, etc.
Well said. So as you can see, in closing, it says the proprietary house. This is in Amboy. This is where I'm at now, in Perth Amboy. I can walk right to this proprietary house. First seat of the government. It says, the territory which would later become the state of New Jersey was settled by Dutch and Swedish colonists in the early 17th century. In 1664, at the onset of the Second Anglo-Dutch War. Now, remember, we just talked about the Anglo and Portuguese War in 1373. Now you still got the Anglo-Saxons battling with the Dutch now in 1664. So the Anglo-Saxon has always been around. Go ahead, Archbishop.
You remember that was also too speaking in regards to the transition of the powers of slavery via this was the South Sea Bubble.
Yes, South Sea Bubble, exactly. By these ruling monarchs. Since the territory which later became the state of New Jersey was settled by Dutch and Swedish colonists in the Second Anglo-Dutch War of of English forces under Richard Nicholas on the outs Dutch from control of the New Netherlands, which was present-day New York, New Jersey, and Delaware. And the territory was divided into several newly defined English colonies, despite one brief year when the Dutch retook the colony in 1673. Let's go a little further. It says the exact location of the border between East Jersey and West Jersey and East Jersey was often a matter of dispute. The two provinces would be distinct political divisions from 1674 to 1702. All right, let me go a little further. All right, I just seen it. In 1702, both divisions of New Jersey were reunited as a royal colony by Queen Anne, with the royal governor appointed by the crown. Now, we already said that the sea bubble was forwarded to Queen Anne. She was forwarded to Queen Anne, and she passed on to King George I, II, and III. So all this stuff was the overtake of the true parliamentary government that was overthrown by the Commonwealth established by Oliver Cromwell once as the English were expelled from England and then called Jews. Now we
Yeah.
call them Jews. So now we can be associated with the so-called biblical story that was created by the same monarchs. Come on, man. They got to be
Look.
sicker than that.
And further, as you read, a point of interest says, and the province was run by de facto by
Right
the
there.
Provincial Congress of New Jersey.
Yes, sir. And William Franklin, the son of Benjamin Franklin, told him that anything you do from here forward out, from this forth, is fraudulent. That's why the Provincial Congress in June 1776, that where they declared their independence on July 4th, 1776.
Yep.
So everything that they declared was for naught. Why? Because we just said everything from 1664 has been dissolved. So if that's been dissolved, the United States been dissolved, the United States of America has been dissolved, and all these international governments that were established from the United States are dissolved. It can only be dissolved by us taking back our official capacity as officers of the English Spirit Temple Church of England, which is the structure for our government under the authority of the King's Bench, which has been declared, proclaimed, and publicized by way of proclamation on this very day we having this meeting.
Absolutely. Well said.
Yeah.
Well
You know
said.
what I'm saying? So on that note, I love you all. Thank you for your fealty. We about to start it, y'all. We about to get it popping. You know what I'm saying? And I don't want no weakness from us. And as the people who are viewing this, do not seek weakness. We are all strong. So with that, I love you. I had y'all long enough. It's 4 o'clock. My time to go. Y'all can build amongst yourselves with CA and Core Judah. But like I said, it's much more work we got to be done. Cliff is in to be starting shortly. And in that class, that was called the Middle Temple. So you are now in the Inner Temple. We'll be moving over to the Middle Temple to learn how to apply this legal law in regards to our English history, which we learned in the Inner Temple when you came into it. And once that's done, we can enter into the Outer Temple and start our ministry in lieu of what we call fisher of men or fisher of men and women, because that's our job as fishermen.
Yep.
So I love y'all, and I'm ecstatic. Just the fact that y'all honor me as your king, and that's some big shoes to fit in, But I'm hopefully one size fits all. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm pretty sure all the kings who preceded me didn't have the same size I wore. You know what I'm saying? So when we say shoe, we're talking about the mindset. You know what I'm saying? Because as mind says, the body will follow. And I'm led by my mind, and mind is matter. It's one and the same. So I love you all once again. I can't say it enough. Archbishop CA, get with them in regards to their dissertation, as well as the other pre-requirements in regards to the English Temple Church and